Hello YouTube, Matt here from the Bluebell Model Railway channel, here with another model review. Here we have Dapol's or Dapol's latest 00 offering, Hawthorn Leslie 040 ST saddle tank locomotive in 00 scale. This one is of course Invincible. As some of you may know, I'm actually from the Isle of Wight, so it's quite a clear choice for me which one I was going to go after, as this one, Invincible, is on the Isle of Wight Steam Railway, currently under overhaul at the moment, but is on display in the train story building and is numbered W37. But a lot of its life was used for its main job, which was shunting. In 1915 it was built and supplied to the Woolwich Arsenal, where it worked with 17 others of its classmates, shunting an extensive railway system. It remained there until 1955, where it was overhauled and given a new boiler and then transferred to the Royal Aircraft establishment in Farnborough. There's quite a lot of footage on YouTube of Invincible running around the roads of Farnborough hauling coal from Farnborough Station to the aircraft facility. Invincible ended its career at the establishment railway system in 1968 and was thereby purchased by Tom Jeffries of Southampton, who placed it on loan to the Isle of Wight Steam Railway, where it remains today. There are currently 10 of these locomotives saved in preservation. Some are still running today, and there's quite a few that Dapol have modelled. As mentioned earlier on in the video, this locomotive Invincible is currently under overhaul at Haven Street on the Isle of Wight Steam Railway, and is being undertaken by a young members group, which unfortunately has been quite delayed due to COVID. So let's have a closer look at this model, firstly with the packaging, which is slightly different to before. Okay, so you join me on my desk here where I do all my work, and we have the locomotive or model out in front of us. It's worth mentioning Dapol or Dapol, however you want to say it. This is now mounted on a perspex plinth, which is screwed and mounted to, and this has two pieces of hardboard at either side, and this wedges this in, so you need to take the hardboard out first once you get rid of the hard impact foam cover, and then slide this out. But it's a unique situation, a unique mounting technique which I haven't seen before, but it seems to work well, and it arrived in one piece. In the box as well you'll find a user's manual, which you can find all the information, background, and how to take the roof off, which we'll get into, and how to put DCC into the model, as well as all the other blurb. Also in the box, which I haven't seen mentioned anywhere on any other walkthrough or review, is this model has some etched plates. This having a name on it, which is Invincible. You have two nameplates. You have some screw link couplings which go in the buffer beam, as well as some builder's plates, which you might be able to see one there and another one in the corner there, which is nice, and they're actually etched, unlike some other manufacturers. So I'll now remove the locomotive from the plinth and get on and review the model. So now I've removed the model from its plastic plinth, let's have a quick overview at pricing and details. This model was announced in 2022 and I pre-ordered in that year. It has just been delivered July 2024. I pre-ordered my model through D-Rails, and I paid £107.40 for a DCC ready version. There are other versions available. This includes DCC fitted at £139.53, and also DCC sound at £226.50. First impressions are good, with a lot of white metal in its construction. A white metal saddle tank, a nicely turned brass chimney, a white metal running plate, and a plastic cab with a removable roof. The chassis itself is metal, but it's a split chassis design, and hopefully we don't have any nightmares of the 1980s. Power is picked up from the 4 metal wheels and is driven via the back axle, with the front axle being compensated. Power is then transmitted through 4 brass bearings through the chassis to the motor mounted in the top. The motor in the top is a 5-pole skew-wound motor with flywheel. There is then a PCB board on top with an X18 decoder socket. To access the decoder socket is quite simple. Simply remove the water filler cap. Underneath you can just about see the top of a Phillips screw. Remove this, lift up at the rear by 5 degrees and slide forwards, and the reverse to put it back on. There is also provision for sound as well if you wish to fit it yourself. This locomotive is also fitted with firebox flicker and also NEM pockets as standard. Let's carry on and look at this model in more detail. So the body shell construction is actually surprisingly made of metal. We have a metal running plate and a metal saddle tank, as well as an underneath as well. The cab itself is plastic, so we could say die cast. The weight of this model is 140 grams, which, considering its size being only 80 mm long to buffer beam, is rather impressive, which has traction and a good, nice quality feel to the model. This is certainly an improvement over the B4 tank engine which I had last from Dapol, which was mainly all plastic, so a nice welcome surprise. The livery itself is nicely applied in its Woolwich Arsenal colour scheme, which is a maroon and straw livery. Nicely applied, although there are a few small issues in places which I'll get to as we go around the model. The nameplates and builder's plates are also crisply applied and almost legible, especially on the side of the cab. Starting at the very front of this model, we have a nicely detailed buffer beam casting on the running plate, a whole 4V screw link detail coupling, and also some nice lining around the border. As I did mention at the beginning of this part, there is a few small errors. On the buffer beam itself with the lining, we get to the buffer housing where the lining does not stop and just continues over. This really should stop and go behind the buffer beam housing, so this is a decoration error. Moving round to underneath of the buffer beam, we can see a compromise has been made here. A small cutout on the underside, about 2 mm deep, to allow the NEM pocket. However, I do feel this is slightly oversized due to the kinematic coupling on the Dapol models. As you can see, these swing from side to side. The buffers have a good spring to them, quite a nice resistance, and are quite nice and large considering the prototype. I do feel they might be too oversized, if you know what I mean. They do seem extremely large. However, all I can do is compare what I can see in the real world, and I'm not knowing that if the buffers have been changed in its lifetime or they are the same. Either way, they are quite large. Speaking of large, we'll move on to the smoke box, and you can see nice rivet detail around the edge, but this smoke box door handle is also oversized by maybe a millimetre and a half, so it is over scale. This plate, which sits on the front of the saddle tank itself, isn't quite flush to the tank and does come out a slight way, but it's not too bad considering some I have seen. If you do want this a little bit more flush, it's best to take the saddle tank off and have a look if it's been mounted correctly. The handrails come around the front here and are fully metal, as well as the handrail knobs. We have a small lamp bracket at the top, which is also nicely fitted. There are no lamp brackets along the front of the buffer beam, although they do appear there in 1955, so maybe they were not present when built. Moving on to the upper part for the saddle tank and the chimney, you can see here nice separate fitted details in terms of handrail going along the side. Again, nice printing on the nameplate, and the chimney here is a turned brass metal piece. The top is separate to the base, so they can change tooling or change chimney type. A couple of manufacturers have gone down this route in terms of how to do different chimneys. This one on this model is not too bad, although there is a seam where the top meets the bottom and it isn't too well hidden, but it does blend in quite well. Also under this tank is housed the next 18 decoder socket, as is the motor, the 5-pole skew wound motor with flywheel, as is a compartment for a speaker. To access this, it is not too difficult. Firstly, we need to just take hold of the filler cap and just ease it out. Tilting it towards the camera, you can see the top of the screw, which is a Phillips screwdriver head. You remove this, pull up the back by about 5 degrees and slide forward, which opens access to the socket and the PCB. Moving down and underneath the tanks, you can see some nice pipe work here picked out in copper and brass, and a small lubricator here just underneath the tank. Of course, we have a sandbox here as well, all nicely picked out and lined. Moving down, we find our next small issue. Moving to the front of the cylinder. This is a lubricator pot on the front of a cylinder, as they were in real life and are still present on Invincible even today. However, despite me warning them, Dapol that is, on the CADs they were the wrong way up, they have still mounted them the wrong way up. They should be pointing upwards, being a lubricator pot, and unfortunately they've mounted them still the wrong way up. Moving back, we have a nicely lined cylinder, all metal slide bar and rod, as well as nicely done connecting rods. The metal wheels as well, all nicely lined out, although they haven't added the black rim, which is a bit of a shame. Underneath, the rear axle is the main drive axle coming down from the gearbox. The front axle is also compensated and rocked on the middle pivot. The chassis on this is a split chassis, which is quite surprising, and picks up the power off of the 4 bearings on the wheels. The keeper plate is only held in by a couple of screws and comes off in one piece with the brake rigging. Moving backwards, we can also see a nice sander and sander pipe, as there is here at the front on the front wheels. So moving back towards the cab, this is an all plastic construction on this model, and starting at the front we have a plastic coal load. Not particularly realistic, but it does the job. The lining along the side of the cab is nicely applied, as is the builder's plate. Moving just round to the front of the bunker, Unfortunately for me, this should be black on the front of the bunker, but has been left maroon. But a quick touch up with a paintbrush shouldn't be too much of a concern. We have some nice rivet detail along the base of the cab, some nice lining along the steps, and some nice metal handrails on the front of the cab. You can also see through the cab doorway the nice decorated and detailed backhead. This backhead also has a nice open firebox hole door, which allows the firebox glow to come out of it nice and easily. Moving round to the back of the locomotive, we can see the continuation of the lining nicely applied with one solitary lamp iron. We also have some nice flush glazing, as well as a small bulge on the back of the cab to allow for the handbrake on the inside. Buffer heads are again, in my view, slightly large, as well as that same decoration area which goes over the buffer housing on the back. We also have the annoying, yet again, sideways kinematic coupling. Some of you may be wondering, how on earth do I get a crew in this? So let's have a look at that next. Adding some crew to this model is quite simple and straightforward. The cab roof is magnetic and fits very neatly and snugly. Just tilt it towards the camera, you can see two magnets, one at the front and one at the rear. You can now really appreciate the detail in the cab. However, I've noticed they've gone down the Hornby route with the single piece of glazing in the front of the cab. That's slightly disappointing considering what they did on the B4. However, I guess they've done it for a reason, which is a small amount of space to put the printing on the back of the cab. The cab roof will simply and easily clip back into place. Onto the other side, again we have very much a similar story. Nicely detailed, nicely lined out. And on the front of the cab, again we have flush glazing, the Ross Pop safety valves, and also a small whistle. Again, nice pipework and a small step, and overall some nice decoration and detail. So now we've had a quick look around this model, I'm now going to take it over to a rolling road and just see how it goes. I have already tested this model just to make sure it works and runs before I did the review, and it was okay. Let's take it over to the rolling road so you can have a look at its running qualities. So to quickly summarise this model, as you have seen in the previous clips, it runs well on my rolling road. Unfortunately I don't have a layout or a shunting board to show you it on, despite my best efforts to secure one. I have seen on other YouTube videos that it does struggle on Insulfrog and Unifrog, I think they're called, from Pico. This is just mainly due to its short wheelbase, so it does need a bit more speed to get over them. As I've mentioned, it does have a flywheel, so it does need some inertia to get it going. The price I paid for this was £107.40 from Derails. Other places are available with these models. Overall, there are 9 livery variations to choose from. There is one exclusive from the Footplate model shop in, I think, Kidderminster, which is slightly different and exclusive to them only. For me, there are some decoration issues. The buffer beam, for example, and the lining, the front of the coal bunkers, which should be black, as well as the top also of them around the coal is red, which probably should be black as well. A few small things which I think might be overscale, which are the buffers and the smoke box door dart for sure, and also the small error of mounting the lubricating pots upside down on the cylinders. Overall, I do like the model. Personally, I don't like the kinematic couplings, but that's just me. It does run well, it's very well weighted and can pull double its weight from what I've seen, and overall it's a good model. As I say, I don't give models marks out of 5 or 10, I just leave it up to you to decide what you think, and from what you can see as well. Overall, all round, is certainly an improvement on the last one I purchased, and it's a good solid model. I hope you have enjoyed this video. There should be another one along the line or down the line at some point when more models get released, what I have on order. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please subscribe if you have, to look out for more new content, and hopefully see you again on the next one.